I'm so excited. I'm here with Atoosa Rubenstein, Atoosa at Atoosa.com, as she's also known as.
This week, your friend, an Earth School classmate, Atoosa.
We know each other through our children, and I'm just so delighted to have this opportunity to talk very casually and authentically with you. And I have to say, I remember.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. And I remember, I just love, all that you're doing now. I remember sitting next to you at a mom's night out, and you said, I
remember that night.
Remember that? Yeah. And we were having dinner, and I was like, oh my God, I was so fascinated by what you had to say. You're like, I just want to go out there and be like my unvarnished self, and I'm so psyched to see you actually doing that now. A few years later.
Atoosa Rubenstein is here at the age of 26. She founded CosmoGIRL magazine, the younger and hipper sister to Cosmopolitan. She is now the editor-in-chief of 17 and a rising star in the publishing world. Her goal at 17 is simple: restore the magazine to its heyday as a teen fashion Bible while encouraging self-confidence in her young readers. I am pleased to have her here. Her own personal story is as interesting as her magazine. Welcome.
Thank you.
Great to have you here.
It's great to be here.
How did you get from the editor-in-chief of 17 to Atoosa unedited? Like, how did warts and everything? I know you like to talk about the warts.
Yeah. Warts are good, unless they're on your labia. I'm just kidding. Sorry.
See, unedited.
This is what happens when you have me.
I love it. This is what it's about. I mean, there's, we're not holding back. So go for it.
Anyway, so yeah, I had, like, many people out there, a very kind of highfalutin job and lifestyle.
The editor of the teen magazine, 16 and a half, Atoosa Rosenfeld.
Hey guys. Hi, Amy. What's up, Beth? It is so awesome to be here. Amy, wasn't Degrassi on the end super crunk last night?
I don't know what any of those words mean.
I had all the markings of success and happiness. Literally, I had it all. And yet on the inside, I was miserable. And so I stopped. I mean, I just, there was a moment at which I was doing a contract negotiation. And I remember saying to my husband, like, I want to make this amount of money. And he was like, well, no big deal. Because I was kind of at the height of my career at that point. I had a television show on MTV. Like, I remember that week SNL had spoofed me. Vanity Fair wanted to do a profile about me. I mean, I was like at the tippy top. And he's like, well, just tell them why you're worth it. And I was like, but I'm not worth it. That's just the price I put on how miserable I am. And he,
you were miserable inside when all this was going on.
So miserable. Yeah. It's like, you can have everything on the outside that you maybe have dreamed and wanted, whether it's everything from the big job, being on TV all the time, the positive press, having the house in the Hamptons, blah, 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 all the stuff.
Yep. The checklist.
Yeah. Like the Met Gala, like everything that people kind of put on a pedestal. You can be there, but that doesn't mean you're happy. Right. And so for me, I was definitely not happy. I was having affairs. I was like eating a ton of sugar, just like medicating with sugar. And it was not good. So in that moment, I just decided I'm not going to renew my contract. And, it took me a year to really understand, because then I had the highfalutin CIA agent and the literary agent and all the deals they were bringing.
You had also launched CosmoGIRL as well, right? It wasn't just 17.
Right. So I had created CosmoGIRL and then did 17, was the editor for 17 as well. So yeah, a ton of stuff.
But don't you know that only fools are satisfied? Dream on, but don't imagine they'll all come true. Ooh.
How do you pull the plug on all that? I mean, that's hard.
It's very easy. And I'm going to tell you why it's very easy. Because when it's right, it's right. When you make a decision based on how you feel, as opposed to what was hard was like when you're in a car and the light turns green, what do? you go, you go. And so I thought it felt every sort of promotion and success and this and this and this I would get, it was like a green light. And I would just go. Yes, yes, yes. You need me to do this? Yes. I have to be in Brussels for one day. Yes. Okay. And now I go to Bahamas for one day. Yes. Because these are all great opportunities. And I think we're taught at a young age going to school, honestly, because like, who the hell likes going to school? School sucked. You know what I mean? I remember being in like 7th grade, like, oh, but we are taught that we must kind of move through that discomfort and sit with that discomfort. And so I just thought, all right, well, this is more of that.
Right.
And so it felt like, honestly, like I was in a jacuzzi and I'm like overlooking my dream life, and the water is getting hotter and hotter and hotter. And so finally I was like, I gotta get the fuck out of here. Like it was just like, get me out.
Wow.
And
so how to reach that point of just like
and it was all inside. Like I recently reconnected with my therapist from back then, and I wanted to tell him I was getting divorced and I was coming back into the sort of public world, and he reminded me how I felt back then. And it was like, I was like borderline agoraphobic. Like I didn't want to go out, but yet I had to be out every night. And I kind of dreaded it. So it was just very physically uncomfortable to me. That ascent was not natural to ascend that quickly. And I also had
one, I imagine, who felt this. No one else on the outside knew that this was going on inside of you.
No, because I was Atoosa, like you create. And listen, you have this too. You have a version of you for your audience that's, always smiling, and like sometimes you feel sad. And you can't show that on camera, but I was always on camera, not just literally on camera. I was literally on camera every day, but I was also, because of my role in the media industry, people were always watching me. And so I was always on. And then I think that, the other piece that's really important is I grew up, I am a survivor of incest. And it was something that, like many people who have had abuse in their childhood, I like to think many people get a lot of support for it. Most people would get support for it. But because at a very young age, so I was an editor-in-chief by the time I was 26. Amazing. And so I just I hadn't processed it yet. I just hadn't.
I do remember you telling me that you achieved such success, but you felt like you didn't have this inner foundation to build upon, and that you had to work through that. And so just to think that you had to reconcile these two Atoosas, right, at the same time, that's really challenging.
Like I know you as a parent, right? And I know with your children, when they're going through something, you're there as their coach, even more than you are for your audience, right? And you help them know how to balance. So when, I didn't have somebody in my life telling me that when I was a kid. And so when I got to this place, I didn't know you could say no. I didn't know my mental health was important. I didn't know that if I don't feel good in my body, that maybe I should do something different.
Do you have a negative pattern that keeps repeating in your life? Like you seem to work for people who always fill in the blank, or date men who always turn out to be ... I
don't know if you've ever had anything like this in your life. I'm sure your audience has. But when you're trying to figure if something feels off, sometimes there'll be something in your life. You'll be like, anything but that. Let it not be that. And that's what my marriage was, right? So I was with my husband for 26 years. And things would feel off in my life. And I would just be try to change anything and everything I could, but not that.
Right. I didn't want that was the real issue.
That's what needed to change.
Right? So you're trying to control your environment in order to correct an underlying issue.
And it wasn't him, right? He's a wonderful person. It was that I had chosen the person who had chosen him, and the connection that we had was a person that was very wounded and unprocessed.
Right.
And I basically married someone who was the mother I wished I had.
Wow.
But that's not the romantic partner I wanted. That's not the life partner I wanted. That wasn't even somebody I had anything in common with.
So
You know,
married
a
your mother.
wonderful, I married my mother. I
Yeah.
married the mother I wanted.
Yeah.
And so, you
Well,
know what I mean?
that
So
probably was good in some ways for your children.
it was exactly as it should have been.
Yeah.
It was exactly as it should have been.
Sure.
And but I felt ready to come back into community with my audience
Mhm.
when I couldn't I was in a prison, and not from him, but
Yeah.
my own prison, internal prison. I couldn't have an honest dialogue until I felt free.
I have to say, like, I laugh out loud when I read your entries, your blog entries at Atoosa Unedited, because I feel like I relate to it so much. Like, one of my favorite things is like when you say, you basically said the best was when I would tell people the real reason I was canceling plans instead of making some shit up. Honestly, I'm just kind of feeling down today, and I want to marinate in it and understand why. Huh? Who says that? But
Oh, you know, that specific conversation was actually like that. The one I was referencing that day was with a Y mom. Was with a mom from our
no
school.
way.
And
I can't even
remember, like,
imagine between me and you with a 92nd Street Y mom how they would have reacted to that. Nothing against the
are
92nd
you
Street Y.
great? No, but they just were like, "Are you?" I remember also with the Y. Oh my God! I don't think it was when we were in class together. I think it was with my older kid. But at one point, I stopped coloring my hair,
Yes.
and it was like gray down to
Yep.
here, and literally everybody there was like, "What's happening?" They were so worried and distressed.
I love how you talk about it, though. You talk about it in a way that makes sense, and it explains why other people are reacting the way they do. I think on some level, like you say, it almost makes them uncomfortable about facing their own realities.
Today, I'm marinating in my mistakes.
By being so honest and authentic, you say you have so many friends, and you used to have so many friends, but the friends that you have today are so much more aligned with your values because they know and love your authentic self. I mean, wow. Like, I mean, that's something people can take a lifetime to realize.
There were so many different little trips I went on during the past 13 years I've been off the professional radar. And of course, I don't mean trips to Europe or the Caribbean. Sure, that too. But more significantly, I'm referring to the internal journeys I've taken. Research expeditions, so to speak.
I want to talk about your weight gain a little bit. You know, you talked about, again, like your gray hair, you know, just sort of like observing it. And, you know, you talk about being domesticated, like this was like the Atoosa domesticated.
Mm-hmm.
And you've said that you've used food to ground yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll tell you about the first time. Yeah. So one thing that I think is worth mentioning whenever we talk about weight for me is that I have never in my life had a weight problem. And I really credit my mom with it, because many moms, I think, struggle with their weight, and then kind of through osmosis, the kids pick it up. I will tell you, in all of my life and in all of my mom's imperfections, there are many, just because I have many as a mom. That woman never once talked about her weight or her body. She thought, and she thought she was beautiful. Her body was not necessarily, you know, she was like a mommy, but like I felt how beautiful.
What does that mean, like a mommy?
Like, you know, she had like a mommy body. Like today's mommy bodies are ridiculous. Like women, you know, women are doing everything,
right,
including going under the knife to look like they were still like when they're 20.
Yeah.
When I say she has a mommy body, she looks like like, you know, her butt is bigger than it was when she was younger. You know, the belly from having 4 babies is, you know, not quite tight. She wasn't like a workout mom. She's 90 years old today, but you know, but she thought she was beautiful, and she was beautiful. And like, so I up feeling, no matter what I look like at my dorkiest, I thought I was so beautiful. And so
That's wonderful.
so wonderful. And I thank her for that. And that's why I can kind of like really talk about what I'm about to talk about with you without shame. You know what I mean? Because like, I don't have that underlying, I'm not worthy if I don't look a certain way. So the very first time I used food to numb myself, I was about 8 or 9 years old. And I was, who I was molested by as a young person was 2 of my cousins. And they're much grown up, older than me. They were grown-ups. And I was about 8 or 9 years old, and I was at the wedding of one of them. And it was very confusing to me because in some ways, like everybody was celebrating him. And like,
was it his wedding?
It was his wedding.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
it was
remember you
his
talking about being
wedding.
at the table and like
Yeah.
all these
And
thoughts.
it was like, and I grew up, another reason probably why I have like a healthy thing with my body is that we pretty much only ate at home.
Oh,
Only my mom's cooking. Like
okay.
we were not a family, both for financial reasons and maybe other reasons. We did not eat out. And so we were at a restaurant for like a rehearsal dinner. And it was like one of those chain restaurants, but like not TGI Fridays, better than TGI Fridays, but kind of like that.
Love
So,
Friday.
but better than that. Yeah, a little better than that.
Yeah.
And I just like, I ate and I ate and I ate and I ate until like my stomach was like bursting out of my pants. I remember like I almost couldn't breathe. And it tasted so good. But more importantly, I just didn't know what else to do with all of these feelings. And the feelings were so uncomfortable. And somehow the food was having a physical sensation.
Sure.
You know, and
Focused on, as opposed to focusing on the other discomfort.
It made me think of something different.
Yeah.
And so I did that. That was the first time I was like I said, 8 or 9 years old. And then again, because we didn't eat out a lot, you kind of can't do that with home food, particularly if you have a mother that cooks like healthy, like I'm not going to like stuff my face with lamb, you know? So, you know, that kind of transitioned to when I was in college to cutting. So I was, because in some ways that food thing is a form of self-injury. I don't know if they consider it that or not, but it's a way of kind of feeling physically what's so hard to feel emotionally, and then you can take care of yourself. You know, like with the cutting, you can bandage it, you can clean it and put Neosporin, and suddenly it overrides the emotional pain.
But it's also shielding you from it.
Yeah. And so I did that in college. And then in my, you know, for sure during when I was working, when I was really stressed, I would have candy. You know, I was like a candy person. When I was launching CosmoGIRL, I remember I would have 7 Cokes a day. 7.
Wow.
I just like drink them and crush them. Yeah, I would like crush Cokes all day. And at that point, I wasn't really gaining weight, so there was no, but once I had the twins, I started to be, right before I had the twins, I had an opportunity. They had called me to go back to be an editor-in-chief of one of the biggest magazines in the industry. Literally on the day I found out I was pregnant. And then the next day I found out I was pregnant with twins. And I was like, when it was twins, because I thought like you have twins because you're trying to have twins or like you're doing fertility treatments. I didn't realize you can like accidentally get pregnant with twins.
Twins, wow.
And so I was really overwhelmed by that. And I was like, there's no way I can work. Like I couldn't even wrap my head around having twins.
No, I totally get that.
But there was obviously a part of me that was ready to go back to work.
Yeah.
And so then I have these babies, and you know, I'm just like I'm bored. I did the thing again. I did the thing for work where I burn out. I do too much at our school.
Again, you repeated it.
I did it at our school. Remember, like suddenly I'm like the head of the
Yes.
benefit.
You were
weren't
you the president of the PA?
Yeah, I was the PA
You were on the
president.
stage.
I
Oh my
was
gosh.
the thing
Yes.
of the,
Yes.
I ran the benefit, and I did it crazy. Like I was doing it as though I was running a magazine. It was nonstop.
That's how you do. You were wired, right? To kind of work that way.
I did it again. Even though I knew that was not healthy, I left. I replicated it.
Wow.
But then I realized, like when I did it the second time, you know, they say repeat and repair. I was like, oh my God, I'm doing it again. So I went even deeper into, once I left, I realized I repeated, and I was really self-medicating with food at that point. So I had gained weight. So what would I do? Like I would drop off my kids. I'd go get like a bagel. And then for lunch, I'd get like a sandwich. Like I just was like carbo loading to just, I don't know, address the fact that like, I don't want to talk about gymnastics. You know what I mean? I don't give a crap about soccer. Like, I don't want to talk about that. And that's all the moms were talking about was their kids. And, you know, there was clearly a part of me that wanted to be in a different kind of community, professionally and active and creative. And I don't know, like I was lost and I was in the wrong marriage. And so I was just like, carb. And and so the other thing that I think contributed honestly to mine, and it gets so complicated, but during that whole time that you knew me, our house had, and I had no idea, our apartment had a toxic mold infestation for years. Once we got out of the mold and we remediated the mold, I had a lot of clarity and I was able to look at my life differently, because the mold does something to it almost like creates a brain fog. And then I started to just make some shifts and some changes. I was completely uninvolved in my kids' schools, which is what I needed to do to kind of go hibernate. I really started to do plant medicine. Which helped me see. No, like mushrooms. And
like that?
Not that.
CBD.
And with a guide and very safely, but with intention. And I started to see like, holy crap, like I was almost like trapped in the Barbie dream house, you know,
I remember you wrote about that. And it did look like a Barbie dream house, by the way.
Yeah, my apartment really does. Like it would make my husband crazy that I'd gained so much weight because that just wasn't my blueprint. You know what I mean? And he'd be like, all right, but lose weight. And I'd be like, I know I can lose weight, but I'm so curious. Like, why? What's happening?
Sure. And what'd you discover?
And I discovered that I was numbing myself in order to stay in a relationship that was feeding a wounded part of me that didn't get something that I needed from my mother, but that thing was so important that it was worth not working. It was worth being grounded, like in my life. Like I was always somebody who, like, my friends were over, like, you know, very social and like, you know, all of that, like when I was younger. And he wasn't that kind of guy. So, you know, we were very isolated. He liked to be just with me. And so I'd made all of these choices that were contrary to my true north.
Sure.
You know, in order to have this thing that was more important to me, I guess, but it was all unconscious. It was all unconscious. So once it came to the conscious, I didn't feel the need to medicate myself that way. I could just feel the feeling
Feelings, yeah.
instead of trying to squash the feeling.
What advice would you give someone, maybe even your daughters, if they're choosing something like food or some other unhealthy behavior? Like what would you tell them in terms of how to cope? And maybe they're not even aware, like you weren't aware.
Well, one thing I would say, and this is like the most important thing that I've learned, life is messy. And I think all of us want things to be cut and dry. Like, think of all the people you and I know in common, like the Soul Cycle, the same place for lunch, like, must look great, like all.
I wish we talked more about this a few years ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
So intimidating sometimes, right? Being around those.
And just to always have to be happy and and they medicate too. Everybody medicates with something. They might not medicate with food, they might do it with shopping or fashion or who knows, or exercise. But it's important to know that in these states of almost like disassembled, like right now I am disassembled, because of my weight. Like I don't see it as like I'm in a bad place. I'm in a really disassembled place where I'm just looking at the pieces and I'm trying to just learn about myself and my internal life.
Is it like you're looking at yourself like a third person, like almost like watching you?
I mean, I'm just with myself, like I'm parenting myself. But I'm looking at the pieces and I'm allowing myself to be unraveled. And I think that the reason I'm saying that is because when we're going through something, it's so important to allow ourselves to be unraveled, to look ugly, to feel sad. And, ultimately, like, I call this place the depths, right? We have the depths and we have the heights. And everybody wants to be in the heights. The heights is when we're just like on fire, we're joyful, we're
your best self, right?
Yeah, we're doing a lot of output. Your podcasts are coming out, they're killing, you're producing,
I totally get what you're saying.
The depths are what nourish the heights. And the depths are when we must unravel. And so if I find somebody, whether it's my child or myself, like right now, I'm allowing myself to be in the depths, which means to sit with sorrow, to sit with grief, to sit with discomfort. I'm somebody who came out of a your marriage and the person within a year is and so there of course is a part of me that's like, well, why aren't I doing that? Now I know also, the wiser part of me knows, thank God I'm not doing that. That's not necessarily
that wouldn't work for you.
I don't think it actually works. I think that's another form of numbing.
Right.
So,
coping.
Yeah, it's like moving. Like, let me not feel this. So let me feel nobody, nothing makes everybody happier like a new baby, right?
Yeah.
So
Totally.
that's another kind of numbing. But so instead, I'm allowing myself to be disassembled. And so what I often tell my children when they suffer, because there's so much suffering, and from middle school in particular, socially,
Oh yeah,
and I say, like, let this soften you. Like, allow yourself to feel terrible. Give yourself permission, because the cutting or the food, this is when we're not giving ourselves permission to fall apart when we need to. And so when I'm in the depths, I cancel my day. I literally go into bed and it's almost like you're being, like the Rumi poem with the chickpea, you're being cooked. And I just let it, I breathe, I cry, do whatever I need. It's a way to blanket, like whatever I need, I just do it. And then I emerge and I'm changed.
I love when you talk about being anchored and how the depths anchor you. And I once had someone tell me something similar. That is that when you sit with something, with discomfort, it's, that's when things come to you and guide you and direct you. It's not when you're in the daily grind.
The
You don't
daily
have
grind is bullshit. The daily grind is just like, it's there for us to feel useful, productive, and worthy. Like,
exactly like this fake
it's,
structure. Yeah.
totally.
But that's when revelations come, right? And you talk about that, about finding your anchor. I was like, she gets me.
Yeah.
Like when I was
Well, you
reading.
just have like one hand in the depths, one hand in the heights. And ideally, what you are is the conduit of where your grief takes you, and then being able to then offer it to your community.
And having that anchor to go back to, right? Like you say, it's important to have an anchor
Yeah.
with you when you feel like you're wavering
Yeah.
a little bit.
Well, and for me, the anchor, I mean, an anchor is meditation, right? And is breath, or it could be like a thought. But a lot of people don't choose their anchor, and so their anchor becomes something that they're worried about, because the thinking mind is so strong, and then they become fear-based. So yeah, I mean, everybody is susceptible to that and falls prey to that sometimes. But I think I always try to, make sure I'm being very conscious about what my anchor is.
And what is your anchor?
I mean, right now, my anchor, I mean, I wrote about it the other week, is like the emancipation of Atoosa. Like I am ready to be back in creative community and to be productive. I have
by the way, it's not Atoosa, right?
Right.
We have
of
to
Atoosa. Yeah, that's right.